Stuck in the time heals all wounds waiting room while your ex moves on and you're left carrying the kids' futures, the family's baggage, and the entire grocery load in one single trip? It's time to stop waiting and start reclaiming your life. Today, we're breaking down exactly how to stop feeling broken, rebuild your identity, and set unbreakable boundaries after divorce. Divorce doesn't just break a marriage. It often shatters a woman's confidence, leaving single moms feeling stuck, exhausted, and unworthy of brilliant next chapters. This episode cuts through the standard time heals all wounds fluff to deliver a proactive, step-by-step game plan to rebuild identity, set unapologetic boundaries, and reclaim your happiness, all while juggling the chaos of solo parenting. Today's guest is Sandra. She's the driving force behind Women on Transition, a dedicated support network and coaching platform for women navigating the messy reality of separation and divorce. She specializes in the proactive side of healing, moving women out of the paralyzed waiting time to heal phase and equipping them with practical tools to rebuild their shattered confidence. Through their private online communities and intensive in-person 3-day reset events, Sandra teaches women how to implement rock-solid boundaries, detach from toxic ex-partner dynamics, and intentionally redesign their identity. For a single mum, her work is the bridge between just surviving the fallout of a breakup and actually taking her power back to run her life and household with absolute confidence. Hi, Sandra.
Hey, how are you?
It's good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here, and thanks for the invite.
You're very welcome. You've helped thousands of women navigate the messy, painful reality of separation through Women on Transition. Can you tell me a little bit more about your own journey and let us get to know you and what's this work mean to you and why is it so critical for you to be doing it? And just fill us in.
Well, I definitely didn't start with the end in mind. Going through a separation and divorce myself and understanding firsthand the trauma of that experience and how hard it was. At the time, you're just in survival mode. And I was at the time working as well, had my own business and, had to navigate all the financial settlement as well as all the community and environmental separation of all what were our joint friends, right through to our navigating. I was in a small country town and no family, no support nearby. And so these are the things at the time you just go into survival. So, it really came from a lived experience at the time versus any theory that I knew how to handle it and it was just survival mode. And now, years later, I've been able to not just be able to look back, but I can also put that hand out to be able to support people through that period because it is a window of time. It's not something that they're stuck in forever. And it is something that at the time, it certainly feels that. It feels like there's no way out, no way forward, and you don't even know what to do next.
It's very, very true. It's like you said, it's not something you plan for. And you just, everything just feels like like you get covered with all of it, as in like you're being smothered by all these feelings and responsibilities too. And mums are told at that time that things will sort themselves out, things will settle, maybe you'll get back together, or even you'll manage. There's lots of single mums that are doing it. But in reality, there's a whole load of everyday life that you're carrying, the lunch boxes, the laundry, the executive decision making, what are we going to do with the house and who's going to get the kids, who's going to get the dog, and it's in amongst of it all, you also in core really emotions that are just crazy and you go, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. But you can't even fathom how it can possibly do that.
Absolutely not. And people tell you that, well, you should be over it by now. And there's an expectation, you're still going on about the finances or about him texting you or about, and you're like, hang on, I'm in this every moment of the day. It's all consuming. Yeah. This is all I'm thinking about. What do you mean be over it? There's no textbook for this. And at the time, it is all consuming. It is so overwhelming, and I couldn't even think ahead what I was going to do the next day, or even that day. I could only really think ahead what I was going to achieve in the next, maybe breaking it down to the next 15 minutes, the next, half an hour, the next. And I came out of what was a very abusive relationship, and I really wanted to protect my kids from not having to
Mm.
experience that as well. And there was definitely a breakdown in any civil communication, and the whole separation, even with his family, they were, really came in and said, why didn't I just toughen it out? Like, am I even putting them through this embarrassing situation? And so I felt at the time I had no support there, and I was doing something that was against everybody's belief that we should
Mm.
just be making it work. So then moving from there, my ex at the time decided he was going to go to the doctor and get a medical certificate to say he wasn't capable even of working. So he left and left the community, left the town, and moved like 3 hours away. So we had this another layer of complication, and he chose not to support the kids financially through all of that time. So I was then left with choices of having to not just financially navigate, but I ended up mortgaging the home so the kids could stay there, and paying him out in the end, and then having to keep the kids in the same school. That was my priority, to keep some
Mm.
life of normalcy for them. And also the disruption they had with a father that was being very unstable. And so they were then, getting very mixed messages from us both through this time of what dad's story was to what mum's story was. And they were very polar opposites.
Listening to that,
Mm.
I can think that a lot of our audience would relate to that story and find commonality, maybe not in all of it, but in certain points, especially around, what do we tell the children, and how do we make it work going forward? And then that concept also of family, not necessarily being on your side, and then friends going, well, you should be over this, when they don't even realize that sometimes the court casing can take anywhere up to like 5 or 6 years. Do you think that all of that can affect the mindset and of the mum, obviously to some degree, but to become a barrier to that rebuilding and change?
Absolutely. Mums suddenly have to become mum and dad. We've got to be the disciplinarian and the loved one. We've got to be the compassionate and then the one that's there being the strong one. And not all situations are the same, of course. And certainly going through, not all kids are the same either, but we're dealing with our kids that are in this situation, not of their choice, and they're hurting, and we see hurt people hurt, and kids lash out, and now working with thousands of ladies going through this, we're seeing a lot of separation with children separating from their parents and cutting them off, and it's just so overwhelming, the emotions of it all, and such a lack of, I guess, emotional regulation that's going through this by the adults in it, that the kids have got no solid anchor to hang on to and be attached to and see as their North Star. So it's such a disruptive time for everyone, and it causes so much breakdown and emotional instability in the family. And, there's so many uncertainties. And what happens is when we don't do the work ourselves, we end up, like I ended up in another relationship not far off down the track. There was a family that I knew and felt safe, and it ended up in a relationship that I should never have been in. And
Mm.
I ended up making similar mistakes again because I didn't do the work. It was with somebody that hadn't done his work either, and on himself. Neither of us had high levels of emotional intelligence. And I ended up going through another divorce and separation 12 years later. So, and the
Wow.
kids then were about 17 and 20. So here we are another decade on, and I've gone through and going through a same again. Again, another breakdown of the family home was they had step brothers and sisters. I'd had stepchildren by this stage. And there was also the breakdown of the finances again as well, having to disrupt all of our living arrangements, our bank accounts, our businesses. Like it was just, again, just such I guess, a challenge that I had to navigate through. And I see this over and over. We do the best we can. We're not to blame. When we go back and we look at how we would have done things differently, we probably would. we probably could do things differently with what we know now. But going back, we did the best we could. And it's not going back blaming ourselves. It's going back and being kind to ourselves and looking at that when happened, or I went through that, or I've experienced that and I could have done it better, differently, sure. But now it's being kind to ourselves and learning so that we can grow and not have it ever happen to us again.
I love the hindsight, first of all. Hindsight is such an amazing skill. I wish we were all born with it.
Yes.
Or at least this evolutionary process that we're apparently on. Where is that? That's common sense and hindsight. They need to be, in the DNA. But listening to what you're saying, and it sounds like in that the second marriage breakdown was as a result of being in that trauma of the first marriage breakdown and not having grown through that or potentially healed yourself through that and emotionally, boosted yourself. And it sort of led to that breakdown of the second one, because it was like you didn't have an opportunity there to grow, not to grow. It's not the word I'm thinking of.
No, it is right.
learn
It's
better
really
what
around
healing,
healing and
yeah,
understanding what went wrong. And the reality, and this is a real harsh and hard reality to accept, is I was the common denominator in both breakdowns, in both marriages. And if I had high self-confidence, high self-belief, high self-worth, I never would have gone into either of them. But I look back and I've got two amazing, magnificent children that I never would have had. I've had a lot of positive things that I've brought out of both relationships, and I've learned a lot and I've grown, and I realized how strong and resilient I truly am. And I'm doing the work I'm doing now because of that. However, at the time, all you can feel is that you've just stuffed up again. You've failed. And that feeling of, I can't believe that I've had two failed marriages. I've failed again. And that's a real trigger for just reaffirming that low self-confidence and our belief systems about us not being enough and not being good enough. And it was only then doing that work on building me. And we encourage our ladies that we work with to actually go on a bit of a man ban or woman ban, whatever your choice is, but certainly a partnership ban, and to do the healing first, because what we do is we end up taking on potentially a project, and we're still a project ourselves. And two projects together, or even yourself as a project, just does not create a strong foundation that's healthy and that's got sustainability in it. Somewhere along the line, there's going to be some big cracks that come out.
Absolutely, for sure. You cannot, they say we can multitask, but I beg to differ. Listening to you, it makes so much sense. But yet I'm trying to picture a mum who's maxed out financially, mentally, running on zero emotional bandwidth, hearing you say you have to do this work on yourself and improve yourself emotionally, start healing. Where do you actually begin that work of rediscovering yourself when she barely has like 5 minutes to drink a coffee while it's still hot?
I can totally relate to that. Yes, I can remember not drinking a hot cup of coffee for a few years.
You know what? I actually changed my preference. I talked myself into the fact that I prefer it cold. So now I only drink cold coffee.
That's a positive spin.
I adapted.
Look, I think for me, having the two kids running, at the time I'd started a side business that I ended up evolving into a larger business and ended up eventually selling that business. But it was an agricultural business. I was in a small country town and I was working part-time in the local bank as well. So at the time when we separated, I was only earning $30,000 or $40,000 a year. And from my business, we both had a business together, but he sold that. And he was also involved in a family farm, but he left that and his funds ended up going. And what we financially, when we did the mix, it was a very small amount and like I said, I had to borrow against the house to settle. And I was at the time thinking I had to either go back to work full time in the bank. There was no daycare or childminding services anywhere locally. And I also had to look at either I would do that or I grow my business. So I kept the odd days part-time in the bank, keeping some income coming in. And I just started building my business up slowly on the side and looked at what I could do, what I could control. And that's what it came down to. And I did spend a lot of time in the car because I would drive the kids every second weekend to spend with him. I'd drive them 3 hours where he'd moved away to. So I had this driving time, and your listeners may not have this experience, some of them, but certainly we had the old cassette or CD player in the car. And now you've got the beautiful Spotify. And at the time, we didn't have the joy of being able to stream live, but certainly you can now. And I would load up my little 6-stacker CD player in the car, and I would listen to stories about Olympians that had navigated through losing a leg and becoming a Paralympian, and listen to stories and motivation around people that, because what happens every day is we get up, we turn on the news and it's doom and gloom, and we listen to the radio and there's a lot of stuff on there that's negative, and we listen to our friends and well-meaning friends, and their advice is, oh, move on, get over it, take his money or burn his clothes. It's all stuff that's well-meaning.
Things could be worse,
but not the most. Things could be worse, you know. Oh, if I was single, I wouldn't get married again, and you make the most of this time. And it was well-meaning, and well-intentioned, but certainly not practical advice. So choose who you're listening to. Listen to positive input so that because you've got to outweigh all that negative stuff coming in as well, and be selective where you're getting your advice from.
So I love it. So initially what you're saying is that it doesn't have to be a whole immersion of a self-development course or journey to change it. So it's as simple as selecting what you listen to at the time where you're doing things unmindfully. So like you're cleaning the house or driving or whatever, just selecting what you expose yourself to absorb.
100%. And motion changes our emotion. If you can if you're feeling sad, you're feeling down, you're feeling stuck, stagnant, look at what you could be doing. That grab that pram or grab this, I used to walk the kids down to school in the morning, and it was a couple of K round trip. And that was my morning sort of get out in the fresh air and I'd come back into I worked from home. So I came back into my house through a different door so that I actually felt like I was coming into the office, and I'd sit down in the office and start work. And so what is it that you're doing that you can be setting yourself up, that you're listening to a podcast where yours or someone else's, a great motivating steps each morning to be able to set yourself up. But the other thing I started doing was daily affirmations. So I started this whole thing around what is it that I am good enough and I am enough. And I wrote it on my mirror where I brush my teeth every morning. And I set this intent that I forced myself to start with, to say it out loud. You've got this, girl. You can do this. You're going to be great. And you're an awesome mum. All the things that I felt that I wasn't and had been told at different times I wasn't as well. And really set that intent to start conditioning my mind, because our thoughts turn into our feelings, turn into our actions and our outcomes.
Absolutely. I have this love-hate relationship with affirmations.
Yeah.
Because I find if you stand in front of the mirror and just give yourself this superficial, I'm great, I'm doing good, life is good now, I am worth it, I feel like you're just giving yourself good girl stamps, little stickers for being a good girl. But I think if you take that a step further I think that they can do, that's the hate bit. The love bit is that they do work. And I think if you just put a little bit more of yourself into that affirmation, if you envisage what potentially your life could look like if you did consider yourself worth it, how you would walk down the street, how do you carry your head, how do you speak to people, and then it's taking that affirmation and having, while you're washing those teeth in the morning, visualizing those strengths or those affirmations that you want to bring in. I think that can really make massive change in your life.
Yeah. And one of the things I feel we do, as soon as we wake up in the morning, we reach for that mobile phone, and it might be our alarm as well. And so we turn it off, and then we look at what messages have come through, and we straight into the doing. And it's really about how we can wake up and be in the being. And that's my intention in the morning, is to use that first half hour, just stay in bed, and I look at what is it that I want to achieve today? Who do I need to be to achieve this? And I've got a little meditation I listen to on my phone that sort of sets me up as well. And think about what is it that I'm actually feeling right now. And rather than wake up with a to-do list, wake up with the, rather than the wake up as the human doing, wake up as a human being. And that's really powerful as well. And I finish my day with gratitude. Gratitude, we used to sit around when the kids were little, and certainly they still want to do it now, coming back in. My kids are adults now, they're nearly 30 and 33. And so they still say, Mum, what is it that was good today? And so we used to always share it in the evening meal. What is the one thing that happened today that they're grateful for? And we still talk about that today. And they said it really helped. It didn't matter what chaos was going on, and with one getting bullied at school, or something happened, or someone didn't get played with or didn't get selected for a team. What is it that you're grateful for? And it could be that we're sitting here eating a meal together, or it could be that the sun came up, or it could be that they, were able to use their feet and legs and arms going to school, and they were able to ride their bike. They had a bike. So it's about looking at what is it that you have got, as opposed to all the things that we don't have, or we're not feeling, or we're feeling sad around. What is it that we do have that we can focus on?
They're wonderful little tools, absolutely, to implement throughout the day to start to generate that better outlook. I'd like to sort of go back to something that you've mentioned too in regards to the family and friends, and that perception of you can move on now, or you should be able to move on now and rejoice that you're single, blah, blah, blah. You know, how do you deal with that? How do you set boundaries around these people so that we don't take that on, and then two, don't we're not taken advantage of when we do have all of that stuff coming on board, or the extra executive management of our lives and the children's lives and everything else that's happening, and then trying to implement these little things to benefit ourselves.
Yeah, I see boundaries, or lack of boundaries, and even collapse boundaries, as being one of the most critical feelings that people have, of not having any control or any ability to, and even their self-worth and self-belief is a big attachment to the boundaries as well. So once we have the boundaries in place, the self-belief and the belief system increases and improves. However, we quite often don't have the boundaries in place when we don't have that belief system in place either. So we do, and I see, and I've experienced this as well, that, you'll have one of the parents will actually, give more to the kids as a way of compensating for different feelings that they have, or feelings maybe even of guilt, or feelings that they aren't there for some part of their life, that they actually giving more money, or giving more, and even resentful that the other party is buying something for them, so that we can become a real controlling thing as well. And it's really powerful to look at how boundaries can be used in a healthy way. And boundaries are not there to be used to control anyone. And it's about deciding what you will and won't engage in. And so once we have healthy boundaries in place, this is us saying, well, these are my negotiables, these are my not negotiables, and verbalizing them before you're in a situation of having to utilize them. So it could be that you've got, even as simple as somebody that you've lent money to and they're not paying it back. Or it could be that you've got adult children living at home that are not working and not paying rent. Or so what is it that you're looking at, that you're allowing in your life, that you could be putting some healthy boundaries into place that are going to be setting you all up to understand what the rules of engagement are, the rules of the game, and what you will tolerate and not. This is us understanding what we actually want, and what we haven't quite often asked ourselves in our life, what we actually want. So that's a really big question, because many of us at this point, going through from a separation and now being a single parent, what is it that we actually even want in our life? And that's quite often the question that people can't answer. And it's a really powerful place to be if you can spend some time in that space to be able to think, well, what is it, if I could be anything, choose anything, do anything, what would it even be?
So that would almost be the first step of the whole journey, wouldn't it? Is just that self-discovery.
Yeah.
Before you even come up with the affirmations, or the positive way to start your day, getting clear around who you want to be, so that you know how to then build up those affirmations, to then build up yourself, to then have that confidence and know your self-worth and stand up for the boundaries that you'd like in place.
Yeah.
But then that, I presume, would still lead to that guilt. We were in this family unit. We were part of something. Now, through your fault or not your fault, doesn't really matter. We are women, we're mothers, we're going to take it on board anyway. It's going to be, some of it or all of it is my fault. How do you deal with that? How do
Yeah.
you,
Take the
let's
word
talk about
fault
that
out.
before moving on.
Yeah, and it is what it is, where it is now, and we're all doing the best we can. And the most important thing, that I've learned is that children, whatever age they are, whether they're young or adults, don't need perfection. They need emotional honesty and emotional self-regulation by their parents. And if you
Mm,
can master your own emotional regulation and you can control what comes out of your mouth before it does, and you can learn to pause and again consider where it's going to land and to think about how you're going to position some feedback or some coaching or some responses. Or my daughter, when she would come home from visits with dad, my son would say less, but he would definitely be as affected. She'd come home with stories of things dad had said, and they were just not right. And I was like, how do I defend myself without putting him down? And so
mm,
it keeps coming back to how is it that you want to show up, and
mm,
how can you give your kids tools that can help them manage this? And they are 50% of each parent. So each child is 50% DNA dad and 50% DNA mum. And that's a reality. So when they see mum and dad arguing and this disruption in their lives, they have this 50% attachment to both. And when they see that one party is wrong, even if they still want to feel the love there, they still want to feel that connection and that feeling of having strength there as well, and the ability to feel leaned on. And they are the kids. The adults
mm.
need to be the adults, and they need to adult, and the kids need to be able to be kids and live their life and be able to feel safe within that as well. So as adults, it's looking at yourself in that mirror. That's a hard one to do, and say, would I say this to my kids? Would they be okay reading this text? Would they be okay hearing me say this about their father? Or so be accountable to yourself for your future self and your kids for down the track, because they're things that hurt, and we do go through and we say things we shouldn't have. But now moving forward, draw the line in the sand and choose to go forward and not blame and take responsibility and be that mum that you want to be, the role model mum.
I love that you pointed out that line in the sand, because someone listening might say, oh, well, it's very well now that you've done all that work, how to respond because you don't have those emotions there anymore. You've worked through that. So it's so much easier for you to be grounded and not non reactive. But that there is that point in time where you can make that choice. I will start to do the work. And from now on, I will not be reactive. And even if you do falter, even if you do make a mistake and say respond in a non non healthy way
Yeah.
or a way that potentially is a not very adult, get carried by emotions, you forgive yourself. And if your children are old enough, talk through with them and bring them into that growth as well.
Yeah.
I think that's such an important point to make, that we don't have to be perfect through it all. Even if we have made mistakes or even if we're in that process of healing, we can
Yeah.
give ourselves compassion and work through it. And if we don't react well today, aim for better tomorrow.
Tomorrow the sun comes up again. Be kind to ourselves. That's probably one of the most least things that we do going through this. We're so judgmental of ourselves more than
Mm,
anyone else. And we think we should be doing things better, handling things better, less emotional, not crying so much. We should be able to, we didn't maybe know where all the finances were. And we didn't know how to manage them because we never had, or we weren't able to, allowed to. So there's
yeah.
lots of factors that come into this part. And it's here, the line is in the sand. Moving forward, I'll do things differently. And I'm going to support myself and be kind to myself while I'm learning how to do that. And it's not going to happen overnight. And without a doubt, all of us say things and have said things that we wish we hadn't, we could take back, and we wish we could reframe it. But this is us, like we can't. We can't go back and change things, but we can choose how we do things differently moving forward, and be kind to ourselves while we're learning and growing to do that.
Absolutely. That's so 100% agree with you. 100%.
Yeah.
So if we say today we've drawn that line, can you walk us through the first step? If a mum is listening out there with fresh out of separation, feeling entirely overwhelmed by fear, insecurity, and everything else that we've discussed, what is the very first proactive thing she needs to do tonight to start taking her power back and start on that journey forward?
Yeah. So big thing is just the self-awareness and being kind to you, like I said, and know that you're going to have days that you're going to feel sad. You're going to feel like the whole mapped out life plan has just been ripped out from under you. And
Mm.
some of it was our choice. Some of it wasn't. And factors we don't even understand in some cases, whilst it might have been that one party had an affair, usually in most cases, the breakdowns happen way before that. So,
Mm.
and it's not always an affair that breaks down a relationship. And, we have to work on ourselves before we can do anything else in any part of the relationship, dynamic. So when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling triggered, I remember one day I had like 130 texts and it was just, I could not believe I literally had left my phone while I'd gone to do something and I come back and there was like 50 or 60 unanswered calls and 130 odd abusive messages. And I was just like, I was just so traumatized, even just looking. I didn't even read them all. I was just like, even at that point in that place of trauma. And I just, this is us going, you know what? This is my timing. I can choose when I respond to this. And
Mhm.
what is it during the day that you can control? Because the only thing you can control is how you act, how you behave, and what comes out of your mouth. And you can control that. And it's learning maybe to be pausing when you're feeling triggered, that you want to say something in that fight or flight, or we freeze sometimes and don't say anything. I wish we had later. When it comes down to, the most powerful thing that we can do is to pause, take control of the timing that we respond. And you don't need to respond immediately to anything. You can just simply say, I'll respond when I've had time to think clearly, or I'll respond when I've had time to consider. And it
Mhm.
might be over him picking the kids up. I'll give some thought to that and I'll get back to you. And maybe you give a time that you do get back. Like this one, it takes it back into your control. You've got control now to think about it. You've put a time frame. It's been respectful. And you've got a choice now when you're coming back with time to consider how you do that. And, with my situation, certainly it got down to the point that we weren't able to communicate verbally in a healthy way. It was just, he was just abusive. So it came down to, and even the texts were just off the charts. So, we reverted back to email. So I could just once a day at 10 o'clock, I'd go in and read all the emails and choose what I responded, how I responded, and do it in a way that, again, I felt like I had some control. So what is it that you're feeling out of control and overwhelmed with? And what is it that you can hear? Because how they respond, how they behave, what they say, you can't respond to, or you can't control any of that, but you can respond to it how you choose to respond to it. And I think they're things, little things that we can take control on, and we can bring things back to a place of healthy behavior and healthy communication as well. And there's small things. They're just small things, but the small things do add up. And I think for us, when we felt like we've been overwhelmed and have no control, us finding our voice again is really powerful. And it's a first step in many situations to actually start learning that maybe it's not our speaking up voice, maybe it's a message voice as well.
It certainly sounds that first step, that allowing yourself that small amount of control, or the control over the small things, giving yourself permission to not to read every message. That's wonderful spot to start. I too remember when I've separated, where there would be a gazillion of messages and long ones. And I think that everything changed for me when I realized I don't actually have to read them. I don't have to read every single one. I don't have to respond to every single one. And if it's important, then he'll eventually send me just one message about that.
Yep.
to,
Yep.
to which I will then listen. But it was in my power not
Yes.
to let him in. And that was such a mind-blowing, stupid, isn't it? ridiculous,
It's
really.
not. It's not. It's reality, and we see this all the time. And not everyone's situation's the same, but certainly we do see quite often somebody wanting to take the control they had with you in their relationship. They still want to have that in the separation, and that control you've separated physically, so the control can come back in other ways, or trying to reclaim it. And as soon as you send a message back, then you'll get boom, ding, another one will come back. So you're just creating this. So if you can try and control it so that I'm just going to sit and look at the messages at 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock. And I picked times that I knew he'd be at work, or that times that I knew he'd be maybe at his family's, so that I knew that he couldn't go off as much. And so I was looking at controlling that type, the side of the anger that he had as well, the uncontrolled anger. So it's looking at when is a smart time to respond that you know that's probably the most healthiest time. If it's really something that's time short and it needs to be, hey, I'm on my way to pick up the kids, or, that's something that's great. Thumbs up. So you don't have to go into big communications. Great. Thanks for letting me know. Like, have some little sentences that you've already set in place, and however they respond to you, you can choose how you reply, and you can always choose to be coming from a place of grace and coming from a place of respect. I always kept thinking, if he showed my kids what my messages were, I'd be okay with that, which he did do. And I just had to be really conscious of the communication I was sending, because he wouldn't share his messages. He'd just share mine. So I just had to make sure that I was communicating in a way that my kids could read them.
So very true. We don't have to be rude to set the boundaries or to set that, reclaim that control. You can be quite diplomatic, and you can be quite polite and quite professional in a way that you say no without any defamation of your own person.
Absolutely. And the big one for us is the kids are seeing you behave. They watch, and my son barely said anything to me directly about this, but my daughter was quite vocal, and but he was observing as much as she was, and they just do it differently. And so it's really realizing that just because they're not saying something, it doesn't mean they're not hurting or they're not going through the same pain. And I know that this is healing, and the work that we do, it changes the emotional legacy and literacy for our kids and for generations to come. And the more we can grow ourselves, and the more we can set an example of how we could be doing things differently and better. And like I said, we can't control what's said when they're over at their dad's place or anywhere, but we can give them tools that when they are there, that they can respond in a way that's really healthy as well. Boundaries come down to all of this. It's setting healthy boundaries with your ex, with communication. But you don't just say, I'm just mentally setting a boundary and just it's going to happen. You've got to be clear and communicate what the boundary is and what the repercussions are and why you're setting it. And then you've got to stick to it as well. And you've got to work out what is your not negotiable to do that to start with.
And it's wonderful that you mentioned that kids, they're like sponges. They like your son, he didn't engage verbally about it, but he was watching and listening. And I'm sure that he took away a lot, and how his trajectory of healing went was extremely dependent on you, and how you showed up in the whole, scenario. So I'm really glad that you bring that up, because I think we sometimes get so lost in our own pain. We know that we have to model, we know what we have to do, but just emotionally, we just get so lost that we forget that there is someone there that watches everything we do, not so much what we say, but what we do.
Yeah, and they watch our actions, they watch our emotions, they watch our responses, and they learn from it. And you're choosing what emotions you're letting them see and what you're not able to control. And sometimes we do make mistakes. We do slip up. We do be emotional when we shouldn't. But then it's apologizing. It's saying, hey, I shouldn't have said that about Dad, or hey, I didn't mean to yell. I just was so sad and upset at the moment, but now I'm feeling good, and we're moving through it, and we're working through this, and this isn't. And the big thing I said to the kids at different times was, this is about Mum and Dad. Both Dad and Mum love you, and we're both here for you at any time. However, we're working things out and we're working through our stuff, but you just know that you're loved, and you know that. And that was a big thing that the kids came back later and said, we always felt that you both were there for us, but we just knew that you guys were working out your stuff.
Oh, bless. Now, what we like to do is every episode is give our audience a tool, a little tool that they can have up their sleeve. And I know you've mentioned putting a pause there for example, you're exhausted, highly triggered, and then you get this text and we put a pause. But how do we do that? Do you have like a template or an idea or a step by step? How do you actually how would you achieve it, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it's us even practicing going into a situation. It could be, all right, I'm going to drop the kids off. He's going to be there. He's probably going to ask about pick up the other, at the other end, or like, how am I going to prepare? So you're sort of running through a few different scenarios and go, okay, if things do not go to plan of what my little plan is, what will I do at that point? You think, okay, I'm going to pause and say, all right, well, give me a moment to think about that. Or, well, I'll let you know tomorrow if that serves me or suits me for a change in plan for Sunday. Or so you're already preempting and practicing almost what you're going to say before you have to say it. And, I think the big thing here for the pause, again, it's going in with a plan before it happens. Because when the text start ding, 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 ding starts happening, you go into overwhelm and fear and stress and all those things that kick in. And if you think, okay, what I'm going to do is let him know that I'm just going to respond twice a day to his texts. I'm going to send a message after the next one and say, I'm only going to respond tomorrow at 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock. And after that, unless there's something and I gave my kids mobile phones when they were little as well. So I thought, well, they could always reach me if they needed while they're at dad's. And the big thing is, so you're preparing and planning a little bit more ahead of you're setting up healthy boundaries with him. You're setting up, I'm still open to communication, but this is when I want to respond to you. So, and you've got to be disciplined. Don't get caught up to every time it dings, run to the phone and look at it, because you're giving him rent space and heart space for free. And this is you taking control of that rent in your head and your heart as well, and taking control of your emotions and your feelings back as well. And it doesn't happen overnight. It does take practice and it does take consistency. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
So the takeaway tool really is preparation is the key.
Yes.
And I suppose, I think as you were talking, it just came into my mind that we remunerate on everything so much when we go to bed and we can't sleep, and we go over all these things in our minds and how we did. So rather than utilizing that time thinking of how things went wrong, playing a film in your mind of how you want things to be, that's your preparation. Running those scenarios, oh yeah, tomorrow I'm going to go and see him. And rather than thinking if things are going to go this way, actually structure, like the Olympians do it.
Yes.
Don't they do that before their sports matches and stuff?
Yep.
They see them winning the goal.
Yeah. And, life does not go to plan. We know that. That's why we're here where we are. And life did not go to plan. However, we get to choose every step from here, and we get to make choices. And we've got control of that. We've got control how we respond, what we say. And ultimately, the more we think differently, the more we'll feel differently. And so what is it that you're putting in good fuel in your brain that you do want to have in there, that you are thinking differently as well? So you do feel differently. And it does take time, but it doesn't just happen. Healing does not just heal with time. There's a lot of old, bitter, angry people out there, resentful and triggered by their ex. They don't want to go to the kids' 21st or the weddings and family events because they're fearful of seeing their ex, maybe with a new partner, all the things that stop them from living their own life. And yet their partner quite often is off living their life and not even giving a moment's thought to you. So what is it that you're stopping yourself from having a fulfilling, exciting life because you're caught up in the past and not healing and growing as well? And that's what we want to see. People being whole and complete and living an exciting, healthy life. And it can be the case for everybody.
I love it. I love it. I love the insightful wisdom there. It's beautiful. And it resonates with me with so much what you're saying. Tell me more about the work you and your team do at Women on Transitions. It sounds like it's literally life-changing from our conversation here. So yes. I know that you do private communities and then you have a 3-day reset event. Tell me more about it. So if there's a mum that's listening or watching and she goes, I want this proactive support, how can she find you and how can she reach your programs?
Yeah, Women on Transition was founded by Fiona Fiona May. Fiona May went through, her and I have been friends for 25 years, and we both went through her first divorce about the same time, within about a month of each other. And we had both gone into retirement. I retired a little bit after her, a couple of years later, but she retired at the time as well from her organisation, a business, had 3 adult children. And she said she went looking for help. She went looking for, she'd done a lot of work herself, emotional intelligence, a lot of growth work, we were both very successful in businesses, both had global businesses, but she said she just didn't know where she could go and get good, healthy advice. People that weren't about take what you can get revenge, and she said, I don't want that. She said, I want to be able to settle. I want to be able to move on. I want to be able to create a healthy, understanding for the kids. I want to be able to support them through this. And so in the end, after she had retired, she said she just sat down a little beach off Thailand and she started writing this program. And she came back and started, created Women on Transition. So women transitioning through separation and divorce to the rest of their lives so that they do heal, they do forgive, they do understand what happened, and they do not have it happen again because they learn and they're able to move forward in a way that they have got not just the tools and understanding of what happened to them in their separation and divorce, but understanding what the makeup with their childhood was. You understand where that breakdown happened as well and where your core beliefs came from. And then you look at how you can rebuild on healthy foundations, healthy understand that you can have really focus on goals. Because a lot of us through this think we don't know what we want. We don't know what, someone asked me once what I did as a hobby. And I'm like, you're kidding, right? I don't have time for a hobby.
What is that?
What's a hobby? I'm surviving. Yeah. Every day. And so these are the things that we teach women to be able to go through and create something that, when's the last time you did something that was just for fun, that you were laughing and just having fun? And, we just took a group of 50 women to Bali. And one of the nights was a karaoke dancing night. And one of the ladies came up to me and she said, the last time I danced was 25 years ago. And she said, it was at my wedding. And she said, he said to me, oh, you don't really move very smoothly. You're really quite jilted. And she said she felt very criticized. So she just never danced again. I'm like, 25 years you haven't danced. So we teach women to dance like no one's watching. And to be able to dance for you. And we take them out of their comfort zone. We took them quad biking and took them river tubing and to teach them that the sky's the limit, that there's no limit, that you've got the ability to be able to think big and think hairy and think amazing and have an exciting life ahead. And that's what we want for everybody. But you've got to do the work yourself, on yourself, and the rest will come. But until you do that work, until you grow your emotional intelligence and understand what happened, what my role in all of this was, and how I can stop it ever happening again like this and have a healthy life ahead, and even what a healthy relationship actually looks like. Most of us don't know what a healthy relationship looks like. We haven't had great role models. And even parents that maybe have been married for a long time haven't all had a healthy relationship. So what is the definition of that?
That's brilliant. It sounds like an absolutely amazing journey and service that you provide. You've mentioned that quad biking and dancing and all that. So that would be part of the 3-day retreat. If someone cannot physically remove themselves from their life for 3 days, is there a way that they can still work with you to maybe achieve those goals and discover themselves, but in small increments?
So what we do is we actually run a 3-day weekend event, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
And we've got 3 coming up in October. There are last live events Fiona and I are running.
Okay.
They're going to be in Brisbane, Sydney, and in Perth.
Oh,
so
okay.
if you need to travel, ladies, we encourage you to travel to them because we are going to be there and able to share over the weekend. The 3 days, it's in a conference center. It's all about giving you tools, understanding what's happened. Really, day one's unpacking a lot of things that have been your past and what role we played and why we were conditioned at times to be even having the belief systems that we did. Day 2's about understanding how to put healthy boundaries and healthy foundations into place. And day 3 is moving forward, getting excited and leaving with hope. And of course, you spend 3 days connecting with beautiful souls that you think I'm the only one going through this, yet you go into this room with 300 women that are all going through the same thing. And, you get to hear their stories as well. So very powerful 3 days. Off the back of that, we do have some ladies that want to do our 12-month program. So our
Okay.
12-month program it just does include a week in Bali, but we don't take you until you're about halfway through so that we have your emotional intelligence already starting to build. Otherwise, we'll end up with 50 ladies and going through
Indeed.
crazy times in Bali, whereas as opposed to 50 ladies going through amazing times in Bali.
Well, that 3-day event to start with sounds absolutely amazing. And
Yeah.
what I'll do is I'll grab the details from you and pop that in the show notes to make sure the ladies know where to go.
Yeah.
But it sounds like a beautiful place to start. Just first understanding and then building little blocks of foundation to move from there. And just that being in the room, like you said, with women that are going through the same things, we often do. We feel so isolated.
Yeah.
In this process of separation and divorce, you think, well, nobody else will understand, potentially because our friends are telling us to move on
Yeah, that's
and to
right.
get over it.
And sometimes we do put a shield up and move on, but we haven't moved on. We just are hiding how we're feeling and we're just pushing down and suppressing all that sadness, and it's still there. It doesn't dissipate without actually unpacking it.
Absolutely. And I think too, some of us may potentially feel that, depending on our upbringing and the generation that we're in, that shame too of
Mm,
I failed, or what the society now sees me
yeah.
at, and all the rest. And that is very isolating in itself. So to have
Yeah.
that opportunity to be in a room full of women that get it.
Yes.
And even if, like, if you don't go onto that membership onwards,
Yeah.
I'm sure ladies make friends in that room to then have an accountable buddy or
We
someone.
offer free information and free stuff on the womenontransition.com website. And
Yeah.
there's a monthly subscription you can have, which is just $47 a month to have weekly calls and lessons and things there you can self-learn. The 3 days is an intensive. We do encourage, if you can travel in, to get to one of those. They are incredibly powerful. And we do get, even over the 3 days, we see the massive shift and change in the ladies attending. And shame lives in the dark. It's moving into, we see people that have been sitting on their lounge for 3 months not moving, and they come to one of the events as the only thing they've done, and they're now living an amazing life because they've taken that one step, and
Yes,
it's moved
that's
them into
amazing.
that. Yeah.
That's so wonderful to hear.
Mm.
Is there a cost associated with the 3-day event?
Well, Fiona and I, we subsidize it. So, like I said, we both came out of our retirement. I had already retired as well. And Fiona asked me to be involved with Women on Transition. So I came in, and we have chosen to do this as our give back. And so we subsidize the 3-day events. We charge $47 for the 3 days to attend. And so we make it so it's super affordable. The $47 doesn't cover any costs.
Wow.
However, it's really just to make sure people have got some skin on the game to be able to show up, because we want them to
Of
come.
course. Of
Yeah.
course. Of course, you
And
always, whenever you invest something, you're more likely to see through it. But that's just
yeah,
blowing my mind. $47 for the 3-day event, and then only $49 like a monthly thing, which you could take a little. But that's brilliant.
yeah,
And I presume, obviously, the traveling cost is up to you. But
yeah,
if you live in those cities, then you catch a bus down the road.
yeah.
That's brilliant. That's an amazing way to invest
Yeah,
into
there
your
are
future.
upgrade options, but we've made it affordable for anyone to certainly come in at that level. And you're
Sure.
sitting in the room for 3 days learning the same information as everyone else there. And it's very powerful. You get motivated, you get inspired, and you get to hear things from both Fiona and I's stories and our journeys, but you'll get to hear, like I said, from other people, but practical steps that people have taken themselves, having moved through and going to the other side. And we've got women there that are mums and grandmas. We've got widows there, and there's a real mix of people. But every single person there, regardless that their story is different, still want the same, as in moving forward, feeling whole and complete, and having an amazing, fun life ahead, full of love and laughter. That's what we want. It doesn't just happen. You have to actually do the learning to get to that point that you can actually feel you're in that space to be able to maximize every day. And and it's every day ahead is exciting, and wanting to live it as well.
It sounds a wonderful program, and I'm glad that you also mentioned widows in there too, because
Mhm.
they're single mums
Yeah.
and they often get forgotten in a lot of the platforms that are available out there. So well done to both you. And you guys are doing such an amazing job. And I'm really glad to have had you today to talk about it all. I'm excited for the mums that are listening. And I hope they do take advantage of this opportunity
I do
to
too.
sort of,
Come up and say hi and just share what platform that you're coming through from the Beanstalk Mums platform. And yeah, I'll give you a big hug. Hi. And be great to be able to meet you in person as well.
well, I'm in the Gold Coast, so I might actually gate crash your
Do
Brisbane
it.
one just, for fun, because I'd like to give you a big hug too.
Yeah. Sounds great. Look forward to meeting you in person.
Thank you, Sandra. I really appreciate your time today. And yeah, really grateful for you sharing and doing amazing things in this community.
No, you're welcome. And we love it. That's why we do it.
Well, that was an amazing chat. I love bringing people to you guys that really get the journey and are in it to support you and help you realize that the world has not ended. Your life has not ended. It is just the next chapter. And with a little bit of work, consistent, regular work, simple steps, you can have an amazing future. And to every single one of you watching or listening right now, I want you to remember that you don't just survive this chapter. You completely deserve to step into a brilliant next act. I look forward to seeing you next episode with, I don't know, new amazing guest that I don't know who it is yet, but I'm sure it'll be awesome. I look forward to talking to you guys again in the next episode with an amazing new guest. Take care now.